Hello, I'm Jack Rickard. This is Electric Vehicle Television. This Friday afternoon with my cohort and co-hostage, Brain Noto.
Hey, it's good to be here.
It's Friday,
It is.
September 6th.
Yes, it is.
2013, year of our Lord. And today,
Amen.
we're going to try to talk about electric vehicles. Do we know anything about electric vehicles?
Well, we like them.
We like
we
them,
do
sure.
know that. Yeah, I mean.
Well,
you
we can
know,
get us a copper foil helmet and play along.
We can. That's right. We need a few more of those
Make
copper
something
foil
up.
helmets. Let's see. Well, you know, they did come out with the numbers. I know we hate to, just spoil you with numbers, but it was a good month for electric vehicle sales, actually.
I like numbers.
Yeah, it was.
What's going on here?
We are at total sales right now through the first 8 months of 2013. You know, some of the guys are kind of like Tesla, they're kind of estimating and things, but 58,000, 58.5 in electric vehicle sales.
Excellent.
2012 sales total all year were about 53,000, 52,581. So we have exceeded, and still have 4 months to go.
It's growing. Wonder why that is. How many volts?
A lot of volts, 3,351 volts. Volts up. I mean, they had a biggest month of 2,800, I think, or 2,600, but that's a big jump.
Yeah.
They go to 33.5.
Well, they knocked $5,000 off the price.
Off the 2014s, yes.
Is this a price-sensitive market at that end? I think the answer is yes. Nissan's doing much better. They've lowered their price, and how many did they sell?
Nissan did 2,420, which is another banner month for the Nissan Leaf.
These guys were stumbling along at 9 and 1,100 6 months ago.
Early this year, they were doing the 600, 700, yeah.
It's they've dropped the price, and you know, I mean, I hate to be one of those everything should be for free. I think you should pay for what you get, but they've spent so much money developing these cars. They need the ZEV credits to sell their Silverados.
Right, exactly.
Although I guess Nissan's selling ZEV credits.
Yes, they started.
But the, you know, why not put them out there?
And people love them. Once we know how that works. Once people get their butts in an electric vehicle, they're sold.
I think I made up that butts and seats thing.
Butts and seats?
And I'm seeing it everywhere now.
Advertising.
Everybody's talking about butts and seats. And it was, maybe I got it somewhere. I thought I made it up several years ago. If you guys would get out there and put some butts and seats, that's when you know how an electric car goes. It's happening, Brain.
It is. It really is.
But I attribute most of it, again, to Tesla. The media has dropped. You can't hardly buy an oil company funded study on how really they're dirtier than regular cars, and coal is dirty, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
They have sold that so much. A lot of our environmental cohorts have actually swallowed this line now.
yes. Yeah.
It's not true. It was never true. It's not partially true.
Yeah.
But they've kind of swallowed it. But in the last 2 months, I haven't seen any of it. I haven't heard any of it. It's just like on hiatus. Tesla has changed the tone.
I believe so. Yes.
Of the whole thing. Well, they're at $168 today on their stock. They've changed the whole tone of this thing, and I believe that Nissan and Chevrolet will benefit from a halo effect.
I think so. Absolutely.
From the Tesla Model S.
I think so. Yep. I think so.
It'll be the Model S for the less well-heeled that want to be early adopters.
Right.
And this all fits perfectly with a significant portion of our viewers already have Volts and Leafs and are building cars.
Right.
as I said, they would buy an electric watermelon if you would show them where to plug it in. Uh, the But
right.
that's the low-hanging fruit.
It is.
But now we're starting to get out of just low-hanging fruit and into people who are more receptive to electric cars, partly from your work in putting butts in seats and showing them. If you've noticed, the tone of the questions has changed dramatically in the last year. And I don't think you realize it. One of these guys will go out and 200 people will see him at a car show.
Right.
And you do that enough weekends with enough different builds, and
Viola.
it just spreads through the herd.
Right.
And that's what I've said all along. I went through this with the internet, and I was so focused on the technology, but I, along the way, became aware, this is mostly acculturation. It's not the technology that's holding us back. It's the number of people are there. They just have to learn why you would want to be on the internet.
Right. Yeah. What's out there on that internet?
Yeah. What can I do with that?
What can I do with that
with a
internet?
stub pencil and a piece of paper? Well, a lot,
Yes,
shitbird.
Exactly. Give me my slide rule. Who needs
Yeah,
spreadsheets?
let me show you something here. Let me show you a trick. And it's kind of the same way with electric vehicles. So I think you all have done a good deal of it. Keep in mind, there's a long way to go. They sell 75,000 cars this year. To get to 2.5% of the market in the U.S., you're talking 375,000 cars a year. And so
We're on our way.
I'm at this point pretty willing to have Chevrolet be a range extended electric car instead of a hybrid.
Right.
But I'd do a lot better with that if they'd sell a few of those Sparks and maybe kick that range up on the Volt to 60, 70 miles.
Give you a little more electric range, yeah.
But no, it's happening. The aircraft carrier is starting to turn. It's just a slow turn.
Big.
I went up one night at 2 o'clock in the morning and got the guy up on the bridge to let me steer. It's not as easy as it looks. It's a big boat. Little understeer there. Talking about.
I can feel it slipping.
What else do you know?
Well, in just response to that, we should eventually have even more electric vehicles to choose from. The i3 is going to be going on sale in Norway in November. They did disclose the pricing, and in equivalent dollars, a Leaf is about $37,700 in Norway, and the i3 is going to be out at $39,100.
Okay.
So that's $1,400 difference, and you get you're talking about a BMW now, which may, now I can get my luxury sports brand and start to get some little more panache at that end.
How much is that Norwegian?
The Kronas? It is 237,100 Norwegian kronas.
That's a bunch of Kronas.
That's a lot of kronas, man. I don't know how you keep all those in your car.
Yeah, I think BMW is kind of picking up that they're just a skosh out of position. Here's the Leaf and the Volt going down in price. Here's the Tesla, most of them being sold up price.
Up price, yeah.
And then here's the BMW i3 kind of lost in space in the 40s, and kind of a tweener.
They need an $80,000 car.
Yep, they did.
Yeah.
But how can you tell them?
Yeah.
Oh, well, go after the Leaf. Great.
Yep. What you do. Let's see, what else? Oh, the AAA. Well, I love the AAA. We both lived in California. I'm from California. The Automobile Association of America has put out in the Bellevue, Seattle area the first mobile level 3 charge truck. So you can now, where they used to bring you gas, now they'll bring you fuel in the form of electricity.
Big Dodge Ram 2500.
Throw a power cake on,
With
baby.
a PTO.
PTO.
That's clean and green.
That is. Wow. Don't get behind him.
And belching diesel down the road to go rescue an electric car. But
Don't
no,
let
I
'em
think
do
that's
it.
cool. They're going to have them in Seattle,
Yes.
San Francisco, Los Angeles, Tampa.
Tampa, yeah, and then Knoxville.
And Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yes.
For some reason, Tennessee is like, I guess that's the Nissan factory, and they're all getting behind electric cars over there. Tennessee is emerging as like an electric vehicle state.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Knoxville's got a little
They've got
high-tech corridor
chargers
over
all
there.
over the state,
Yep,
so-
they do. Yeah.
And so, we went to your stepson's wedding in Nashville. I
Nashville,
was
yeah.
charmed by the place. I think it's pretty country.
Yeah.
But we went to the Kentucky Lake this weekend.
Oh,
in
you
the
did?
Tesla.
Oh, that's right. You can drive it out.
It's
to
right
Kentucky
at
Lake.
100 miles over there. We didn't even bother to charge while we were there. 100 miles back.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to charge if you don't have to.
We had 50, 60 miles left on the meter when
There
we
you
pulled
go.
in the garage.
Cool.
Drove to Kentucky Lake, went out on a little boat with the Zimmers and hung out all afternoon.
Oh, nice.
Just kind of spent Labor Day hanging out at the lake. And but we took the Model S.
There you go.
My wife likes it.
Cool. Good.
I don't think I'm going to be able to
You think
get
you're
it
going to
back.
get it back?
She says, if I need one, by God, I can buy one.
That's right. Because if I want to drive it, I need to borrow it from Jill.
I can
See if I
borrow
can-
it, but I'm not going to get it very long at this point.
That's right.
She'd fall in love with it.
Cool. Cool.
So so now AAA can come strand you on the road. They come charge you for 15 minutes, enough to get 10 miles down the road,
Yep.
and I guess they got a 3-phase generator on this PTO, and can put out the fast charge. They didn't say which standard they were supporting.
No, it did. It did neglected
Kind
to
of
mention
pointedly
that.
didn't go there, but and I wonder if that applies to Teslas.
Well, the Tesla little kit that you got that has all the adapters, I guess. is
Well,
almost-
that's for level 2 charge.
Yeah,
Level
level
3
3
is supposed
right.
to be the the fast
Should
charge.
be- Yeah. I wonder what plug they are using.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
Interesting.
So
And as far as road trips go, talking about your road trip to Kentucky
Paducah,
Lake,
yeah.
Elon's going on a
Is he
family.
going to Kentucky Lake
Well,
too?
he
Paducah?
might go right past it.
Uh-huh.
He, earlier in the year, he had, made a statement that he was going to drive cross country in a Model S. I guess there are enough.
that wasn't the part that impressed me.
What'd you like?
He's going to put 5 kids.
That's
in a
what
car
he's
and
going on.
drive
This is going to be
cross-country.
family trip, like the big.
Good luck with that shit, Elon. You
Like
better
the-
take along your bobblehead doll and Charlie Priest. Keep them going crazy there.
Is this like the Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, the
That's
long
it,
trailer
the
kind of thing
long
they're going?
trailer, yeah.
So I guess that they are finalizing the trips. They're saying they're going to be able to do it in 6 days with only 9 hours of charging required to cross the country. So we'll see. They haven't given us the date yet.
That doesn't quite add up, but
Yeah.
there's got to be some overnights in there at level 2.
Yeah, probably.
That's probably special fast charge stops.
Must
that
be
he's
special.
talking
Maybe they'll have the AAA truck
Might
follow
be,
them.
might have the truck follow 'em. Well, good luck with that, Elon. I think your car can do it.
Can you do it?
We'll see. Can Dad, after
See how the
spending
family does it, huh?
the last few years constantly at work, and I'm sure you know most of their names, if you're like me, and now you're going to pile in a car with them, and we're going to make it all up in 9 days. Good luck with that.
That's going to be a tough haul. And just lastly, we always try to bring in a little race action or something here. Update on racing the Speedster last week. We got rained out. It did not rain in Cape Girardeau. It was, however, 30 miles south of us. We took Jamie and Dustin, and we only to be disappointed.
After you'd stripped my car down.
Well, it's going to stay stripped another week because I still need to reset the record.
Okay.
We're not stopping. It was just a minor blip in the action here.
Now, will this be a NEDRA sanctioned event?
This will be for a record. We need to be on a NHRA sanctioned track, and they need to send them 2 time slips. And
Cool.
the official timekeeper, Brian from Thunderstruck, has agreed to accept their time slips.
Huh.
So we're ready. And the last thing about racing is that we talked about the Nissan, the ZEOD, the Ziad a few weeks ago, and they're going to run it in, I believe, in Japan, at the World Endurance Challenge, and that's on a nice track too. Where, Mount Fuji maybe? Fukushima? Someplace.
I've been to Fuji.
Yeah, I think, but and it's got to say in here where the heck it is. But anyway, they're not running it with the internal combustion engine. They're doing some full electric tests out there, and their driver, I think it's Michael Crum, who drives for them, is going to be Kondo Racing, is going to be running the Nissan race cars. We'll see what that's all about here, maybe in early October.
Oh, Ziad, okay.
Yep, and that's the news.
Very good. Aren't you going to ask me what I have here?
It looks, it looks like something like at the dentist would have, like the little, except it's missing one of the pads in the. What is it? It's a.
This is my
Is it the caddy a baby?
35 shoulder mount for our cameras.
Oh.
He's all doing stuff for that Blackmagic Designs
for the camera
that I
okay.
got.
Yeah.
And let me show you, we've got our camera up and running. It's doing the thing with a hood now. Jehu, I can't twist I have to manually focus, and it's not working with that cover.
You can't get to it with the little.
But it
bellows.
looks cool.
It does.
As he says, it looks very professional. Let's see Jehu's update from California.
All right.
Hey Jack, how's it going? I wanted to make a video just to first say how appalled we all are at the fact that your cameras came out missing the week of the show there. We're all hoping the same thing, that it was just someone it wasn't an attendee, it was just someone that walked through the shop and got those. But we are very excited that you've decided to move on and step up your game and get some proper cameras. With the Blackmagic Cinema camera. I mean, that is a very exciting camera. I think you guys are gonna do some great stuff with that. So I wanted to send you some stuff because that's the stuff that we do here at Jag35. We design stuff for DSLRs and cameras that shoot cinema quality video. So I wanted to send you a quick little, this is called our DSLR stand. It's a very basic thing that you can use to set up your camera and then give you industry standard 15mm rails. And what these rails allow you to do is to put a bunch of stuff in there, like follow focus, handles, batteries, you name it. There's a bunch of stuff that these little cameras need. As you might quickly realize that it's kind of awkward. The form factor is it's just a big box with the screen in the back, and you're gonna need some accessories to be able to do the job correctly. So that's where we come in. There's me and a bunch of other people are doing a bunch of accessories for these cameras, and this is where we can help you. So this is a basic rail system. I designed this little guy. It's a low profile version of the one that we've been selling for a few years now. And it's for all the little small cameras that are coming out. Blackmagic design camera is coming out with a cinema camera that it's a pocket. So it's really, really small, and this is where the other stuff is pretty much overkill. So this is a great product for that. I think this is gonna work great for your camera. It will be just enough that it's not too much. It won't. You're trying to keep your system light and small so that you can it won't get in the way. So I'm going to show you how to put it here. Basically, what it allows you to do is mount your camera to a tripod. And even though you can do that without this guy, this allows you to do is have the 50mm rods in there. So this has 3/8, 16 threads and 1/4 threads. I don't know what kind of tripod you're using, but most tripods will have either or, 1/4 or 3/16. So you can put your little quick release plate in there, and then you attach it there, and then you're ready to go. I don't have a Blackmagic cinema camera with me, but let's just pretend this is the cinema camera, right? What you have to do is just find your 1/4 hole in there and attach it to this little 1/4 screw. I design all my parts so that they're toolless. You don't need a screwdriver. to put them on. You don't need a coin or something like that, or a small tiny little screwdriver. I didn't want that because basically what ends up happening is I always lose all the stuff, and I don't have the keys with me, they're in the bag. And so the magic here is to have toolless mounting accessories. So basically this will be your camera. It'll be mounted on rods. It'll be nice and stable here on your tripod, and then you can shoot the show. If you need an extra battery, or if you need a microphone, or you have to, I know you like to use some audio stuff, you have the wireless microphones, I can send you some little brackets so that you can attach them to these rods, and you can keep your whole system here attached in one place, accessible, so that you can operate it. Also, I know that you don't like shaky footage, none of us do, and I heard you mention that in a few of the episodes where you said, Richard, it's all shaky and stuff. For that, our system is modular, so what happens is that you can just keep adding stuff for whatever situation that is that you're shooting. So let's say that you guys are going to, let's say that Elon Musk invites you to take a tour of the factory over here in Fremont, California, and you want to come and you want to shoot it with your brand new camera, right? Okay. So for that, we'll have these parts. This is, I think we call these like the handlebars or something. These are handles that you can attach in these industry standard rod system. So basically what you do, it's really easy. You just loosen up some of these knobs here, and then what it allows you to do is to put it on there really quickly. We'll back up the camera a little bit. And we'll make sure the rods are nice and straight. It's got knobs in here that you can use your fingers to attach them. So all of a sudden you have handles. What does it allow you to do? Well, it allows you to quickly put this other part in here. This is a shoulder mount. And the same part that it's used as a studio kit, like for shooting the video or shooting the show every week, you could use it for it could quickly morph into a shoulder mount. And what it allows you to do is shoot all day. It won't get you as tired, and it will allow you to shoot video steady. So let me just show you how it goes here. It basically goes on your shoulder. And what it allows you to do is put the camera right in front of your face, and it gives you a counterweight. This is a 4-pound weight back here, so that all the weight of the camera, basically you don't have to use your arms to hold it. It helps you by putting some counterweight back there, and it allows you, the heavier the rig is, the more stable it is. So this quickly morphs into that. We have a bunch of kits like this that we put together, and you can use for different cameras or for different configurations. There's one that's straight, that doesn't put the camera right in front of you, but since the Blackmagic design camera has the screen right in the back of the camera, then you'll have to put it right in front of your face. It can't be on the side here, because then you'll get tired really quickly after a few hours of shooting. So let's say that you're shooting, the factory, the Model S factory down here in Fremont. Richard can go around and shoot this guy all day. He won't get that tired, and he can get some steady video. All right, we're going to talk about the Mad Box. If you see in your blog, you posted a picture of the Blackmagic Cinema camera that you just got, and it's got a basic set of rods like this one, like the one I'm standing here, and it also has a Mad Box. We don't manufacture a Mad Box, but we have a buddy of ours, and we've been selling stuff together since the very beginning. He manufactures this Mad Box, which is designed not for the big Hollywood cameras, but is designed for all the DSLRs and all these small form factor cameras that are coming out. Anyways, this is fully adjustable, which is going to work great with our low profile stand that I got here on this one. So basically all you have to do is just put it in front of your rods, and you have to loosen some of these bolts in here so that allows you to put them in there quicker. And all you have to do is adjust your camera right to it. What a matte box will do was allows you to shade some of the light that's coming and hitting your lens at an angle, and that creates glare on your lenses, taking away the contrast. So it lets your pictures look less contrasty, which is not a desirable thing. So you want to try to keep all that light away from the lens and only the light that's coming from the front. So this is what a matte box primary does. The secondary purpose of the matte box is to be able to drop in filters that it could also do stuff to your image. You can put like ND filters to be able to even out your image and your exposure. You can do grads if you want to get your skies and exposure, you know, and there's a bunch of other filters that do like effects, like you can, if you're shooting a wedding, there's the one that you put in there and it makes every highlight look like a little star. And I mean, there's a bunch of them. And you need a matte box usually to put them on. So that's what a matte box will do. And a third thing that it does is it makes your camera, yes, for some people it's the most important thing. It makes your camera look cool. It makes your camera look pretty legit. You show up to an event and you're shooting with a camera in your hand, you just think you're just another tourist, but you put some of this equipment in there and it makes you look like you're you know, a professional, which is what a lot of us are after, you know. So this is the matte box. I'm also including this one in the kit so that you guys can use it to shoot the show every week.
We almost lost our wheel right here.
I like that.
Thank you, Jehu.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely,
nice
man.
equipment, black anodized
Yeah.
stuff. It really looks very professional. This is very pretty stuff. I cannot wait to see what he does. I've added this week, I got 5 Corvette low car
Oh,
drive-by-wire
the
pedals.
throttles, yeah, the pedals, yeah, they're nice.
They're up on the web store. They're not cheap, but they're quality Hall effect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Billet aluminum pedals. I asked Jehu to do me something this quality, but in an electric drive-by-wire pedal.
Okay.
He kind of wants to get into the components business. I said, well, here's a component I'd like to have.
Yeah, right, we have issues with throttles too.
Here's the price that's too high.
Right, yeah.
And if you can make something that I can buy from you and sell at a modest profit, that gives our viewers a little bit better pedal for a little bit less money.
Right, nice.
But you can see he knows how to get stuff
Yeah,
made.
that's beautiful.
And by the way, I like this black anodized aluminum just fine. It does not have to be shiny. A black pedal would be fine. And this is just beautiful stuff. It's got his Jag35.com. Make a Jag35.com pedal
Yeah,
and we'll sell them.
anodize it black, it'll disappear.
Jehu. Beautiful stuff. We're also talking to Gerhard or German or Gersman, or is a guy who stamps panels for all the buses.
Oh, the replacement body panels and things? Okay.
He's going to look at maybe us do a project featuring, he thinks he can do a whole bus.
Oh, man.
And he's going to at least look at the
Nice.
concept of doing it in aluminum and polycarbonate glass
Okay.
instead
Wow.
of glass and
Right.
steel.
Yeah, wow.
And we'll call
Big
it
weight savings.
the G&G Samba bus. Put a big Superman logo on the front instead of VW and tell them, no, that's not a Superman logo. On our planet, that means Samba.
Samba.
It's a symbol for Samba. And so that would be a neat upcoming project. And speaking of projects, I'm getting constant pangs of desire and deep mortal lust for an electric boat.
Oh, man, yeah.
Let me show you why.
Well, after much work, it is the 3rd of September, 2013. We are assembled here at the Nieuwe Meer in Amsterdam. First ride in the new electric Delta, which is quite amazing. We're gonna take her out for a little spin. That's recording? Well, here we go. Let's take a little trip on the Nieuwe Meer, see what the Delta can do.
Gotta love Anna.
Little red boat.
That's pretty cool.
I challenged this guy a year ago to do me a 356 Speedster of the water. From the looks of that beast, I think he's there.
I think so too. That's a sexy little boat.
It is dead sexy, dead red,
Yes.
dead red on the head.
Yes.
And I think he's got a prop or a prop shaft issue. It may be he's duplicated my lawnmower, made the loudest electric boat in the world. But if he can get that ironed out, I've already told him I want one.
Well, we want one. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Aluminum boat,
Yeah.
dead red.
Yeah, Marinello red. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's send me the boat in the bracket, we'll put in the motor and
That's right, we'll
batteries
fix it
here. And but I think he's gonna actually cause cranial detonations across Europe with that boat.
It's sweet. When
If
he
he's
shows
got
up.
any range on it at all, he hadn't said how fast, he hadn't tested any of this, but I bet it'll do an easy 45 kilometers an hour, which is in a little speedster
that's
like
fine.
that's
Yeah.
all I want to do. I'm not flipping
That's
that
enough
thing.
sensation of speed, exactly.
Right, we're not flipping that thing on top of me.
No, no.
And but if he's got a little bit of range in there
It looks fun.
at that, it looked like the front was bouncing a little bit. I mean, I don't know anything about boats. I'd slide a few of those batteries
Yep, a
forward,
little more forward.
make it cut a little, and get rid of that prop vibration. I think this thing could be deadly.
It looks like it.
And I want one. And so good on you, Anna
Nice, way to
Kluppenberg
go.
and our EVTV EU. That's the way to show the creds and you got the chops. I think you'll have people storming him.
I do too.
Over that little speedster. I picture it like actually for big yachts.
Oh, yeah, you need to be able to get to shore and stuff.
Little
yeah.
davit
Yeah,
tender for when you have to
absolutely.
anchor out.
Yep.
And jump in that thing, buzz into town, pick up some groceries, have a gay time at the local watering hole and stagger back to the boat in the little red speedster Yacht cap akimbo.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe, you know, off to the casino at Monaco. You know, how bad can that be?
I think you'd be styling.
I do too. Yeah.
Pulling up to the quay in your red Speedster, stepping off for a few hands of
A few hands of Baccarat.
Baccarat.
That's right. And a few bottles of some nice Burgundy.
Back to the boat for
back to the yacht.
a nightcap.
Levy, back to the yacht.
Love him. A 3-hour tour.
That's right. Thurston, where's Gilligan?
Where's go to little buddy? So away we
Man,
go.
That's it.
Got some bling for my thing.
Ah, cool.
Let's thing with your bling thing. Let's talk about the Generalized Electric Vehicle Control Unit. Last November, I guess, Azure Dynamics had gone bankrupt. They failed to capture the market with a 4D Transit Connect at $58,750 per unit. That's not too surprising. The regular Ford Transit Connect, brand new, is $23,000. You could have bought two of them and had $12,000 left over to buy gasoline. So it wasn't a very good value proposition. We bought one at $6,500 at the auction. I have to tell you, my Escalade's up on the left right now after I've blown the transmission. I'm driving it around. It's a neat little van. We call it the Jinky van, but it accelerates very well. It'll go 60 to 80 miles on a charge, and it's just real handy to haul things around in. We also spent another $100,000 on various things, Bruce, at chargers, among them like 65 DMOX 645 controllers and Siemens motors that were used in the eTransit Connect. At the time, I knew that the eTransit Connect had a vehicle control unit with software especially written for it to drive the Azure Dynamics by CAN bus commands. I had hoped that the original software, which allowed some external inputs for throttle and brake and so forth, was still in there. Alas, it was not to be. The new firmware supported none of that. And the DMOX 645, with the firmware we have available, will only operate by CAN bus command. I talked to several people that had been involved in that who were very anxious to help, as long as I'd give them all the riches of Herod in the process. A couple of them work for Azure Dynamics, and I also spoke to New Eagle, which was a company that had done the original vehicle control unit and the base software, which they had then, some of the people in Azure Dynamics had tuned up a little further. And that's the software they use in the VCU in the eTransit Connect to run the DMOX 645. That VCU and that software is inappropriate for any use that we would have other than doing an eTransit Connect. It has code in it to run the instrument system, to interface with the pre-charge circuit and the battery management systems that Johnson's Control Saft had in the battery pack, and which was necessary to run the DMOX 645. And so I knew that that was not going to be of any use for any individual trying to use the DMOX 645 in their own purposes. And so I talked to some of the engineers at Azure Dynamics. They offered to fix me up with a very basic vehicle control unit after the fashion of what they'd done, but a little bit without some of those features in it. But what they really wanted was for me to pay for the development that they'd already pretty much developed, $10,000 or $15,000. And then I would buy the units from them and sell them to you, and they could make a little bit on each unit. And I decided to pass on that largely because I couldn't get a sense from them that they knew what I was talking about, and that I wanted to be able to configure it. They assured me that they could configure it. In our controllers and inverters in our world, we have a lot of different vehicles, and a lot of things have to be changed to tune the controller or inverter to the specific vehicle and the specific application. In their world, they tune it, and then they make 10,000 copies of it and burn it into these Mohawk VCUs. And then if it needs to be upgraded, they have to put out an update to the software, and they're all reflashed at the dealer. And that's the way it's done in OEM land. I couldn't get them on board with writing any code to make it configurable by a normal humanoid. And most of the automakers don't really want the drivers to be changing the code in the vehicle control unit. So this was a foreign concept to them. I went to New Eagle and had essentially the same conversation. $10,000 up front. We keep the software after we've developed it, which we've already developed it, but we're going to sell it to you for $10,000, and then make a few changes to it for you, and then we'll sell the vehicle control units. You got to get them somewhere anyway, right? And at about $500 a piece, and then you mark those up and sell them to the people that buy the motors and the controllers. It reminded me, and rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, it reminded me of Rich Redmond and David Andrea and all the battery management guys, Dimitri, and them, who are quick to tell you that if you don't buy their BMS, dire consequences will occur and you'll lose all your batteries. Your dog will die, your wife will leave you, and you'll wind up in a home somewhere surrounded by strangers drooling in your soup. You know, I would say that it would be nice to have it where you all should send me money or dire consequences will occur. But stop and think about that whole position. If that's what you have to do to make money, how would you know if you did anything good that people voluntarily wanted to send you money for? Since they have to, or dire consequences will occur, you never know if you're winning or losing. So I wouldn't want that even if I could have it. But let me assure you that every one of you that keeps your money and doesn't send me a penny, you'll be just fine. Meanwhile, we have to come up with a controller for this, and so I decided to do one based originally on the Arduino Machina, simply because it had 2 CAN bus ports on it. But at that time, the Arduino DUI was sort of in a slow motion release that is still going on, and it's about 7 times faster on simple computational tasks than the Arduino Mega, which the Machina was based on. And time being what it is around here, I've got a lot of plates on the end of the sticks, like in the old Ed Sullivan show. I announced an open source project to where not only would you be able to configure the device, but the source code would be freely available for you to actually alter it. And I saw this as kind of a situation where once we have the basics of control of the inverter, that really those same functions are pretty much the same for any inverter or controller. And that any of them that would respond to CAN bus commands, this could be adapted to by creating an object for that particular controller, containing essentially the message digest. What addresses do you use, and what message and data format is a forward torque command, or a reverse torque command, or a forward speed command, reverse speed command? How does it report temperature, voltage? If you look at all the controllers, they basically do the same thing. Meanwhile, the Azure Dynamics employees and New Eagle have both gone quite public that we're going to kill people if we even attempt doing this. That would be a dire consequence. You should probably send them some money. But I'm going to guess not. If we kill anybody, it'll probably be me. Or maybe my new intern, James Frank George Frederick. He looks somewhat disposable. But what they don't know is in our world is very different. We've built a lot of cars here, and we've had to configure Kelly controllers and Zilla controllers and Avnetics controllers, and also MES DEA inverters and Reinhardt Motion Systems inverters, and so forth. Worse, these controllers are kind of a central device in an electric car. They're what translate the driver controls, the brake and the throttle, the ignition switch to some degree, into controlling the power from the batteries applied to the motor. You don't want to get in an electric car, flip a switch, and apply full power from the batteries to the motor. Although in a 79 Pinto in 1981, I kind of did exactly that. It's not a good outcome. And so this device, cogently and in a coordinated fashion, allows you to control the power to the motor through your foot throttle and your brake, and deal with things like regenerative braking and some other things. That sounds pretty simple, but it's like an onion. As you peel it, it gets to be more complicated. What they were referring to is all the mistakes you can make if you've never done this before. As I said, actually, we've done it a lot before, probably more than they have, because in tuning that to your car, what you do is come in, hook up a laptop, make a couple of changes, disconnect the laptop, close up the car, go drive the car, bring the car back, open the hood, hook up the laptop, make a couple of changes, disconnect the laptop, close the hood, go out and drive the car. And after about 120 cycles of that, it starts to feel pretty good. You're getting it kind of how you want it. You can continue that process almost without end. And it will get better all along, but after the first dozen, you've got it pretty much operating. And we've done that on a half a dozen cars and all different kinds of controllers. And I've seen every way to do it, and in fact shown some of the controller people ways that they hadn't seen yet. That and different ways of applying regenerative braking without much of an input. And so we've actually got a lot of experience dinking with controllers and inverters and cars and trying to get them to feel like a car and to feel good that way. Along the way, as I said, not only should you be able to configure it, but you should be able to rewrite it and actually change what we've done to something more akin to what you want. Now, that's got a huge advantage for me. This is open software. If you break it, you own both halves. If you want to sue somebody because it did hurt you, I don't know who you'd go after. It's open software, and it's your responsibility if you use it at all. But there isn't any company developing it. It's kind of in a community of developers, and it's open. You can make any change to it you want, but you have to live with those changes. I think that gives it an enormous amount of power. This device then could be used for a lot of different things with different motors and different controllers, and perhaps even applications that we don't foresee, and maybe it don't have anything to do with electric vehicles. I guess you could use it to operate a refrigerator if you wanted to. And that is the nature of open source software projects. So we're going to do some basic hardware. I'm going to sell it to you. You can go make your own if you want. It is getting to be a little complicated to do that, but you'll have the software to look at, and we'll be able to build the hardware essentially to the software. I'm probably not going to open source the hardware itself, but the software certainly will be, and you'll be able to build your own device as easily. But the idea is that you have control of it. You can configure it, and you can rewrite the software. And we're trying to do that in a fairly modular fashion. To kick it off, I did a specification, really a book in Microsoft Word of how this would work. I don't know how closely we're adhering to it, but it's served as a good guideline. And along the way, we've had a number of software people jump on board and hardware people. Ed Clausen has done most of the original hardware. We have a new version coming that Paulo Alameda, the project has taken his interest. He's from the University of Lisbon in Portugal. Our software team is, I guess, headed by Colin Kidder up in Michigan, but Michael Neuweiler of Switzerland has gotten very much involved. It turns out he's a very talented software designer for automobiles. In fact, I think at this point, he's not really designing, he's kind of running the team that does that. And Charles Gelpin has been on board doing a lot of the throttle work, which is, of course, the center of the beast. So we continue to develop the hardware, which we're mostly going out of ease of assembly, so we don't have to assemble very much and can have it done kind of out of house, and not a lot of soldering of wires, and hopefully to account for some future uses with it. As I say, Ed Clausen of upstate Massachusetts has done most of the actual design of our existing hardware, and he's done a marvelous job. So we're getting a little closer. At EVCon, we tried to get it running. Would you believe that today I discovered that our throttle, I've gotten it working with the GEVCU, and they have an interesting feature in that they print out what the throttle does. And the throttle would put out a value of about 700, and as I opened it up, it fell to 0, stayed there for half the length of the travel of the pedal, and then began to pick up again up to a value of about 2,300 as read on our analog digital converter. So we've got a bad throttle pedal and have had all along. Poor Paulo was out there trying to drive this vehicle, and it was probably the pedal itself. I've since taken one and wired it up kind of long distance where I can play with it here with the GEVCU, and that lets me play with it, and it has a very linear output from 0 up to about 2,300 with no dips or dead spots or any of that. And so I'm pretty sure we actually had a failed pedal in the thing for EVCon. My apologies. All of you who wrestled with that so heroically thinking it was in the software. In any event, we have the latest software here. I have taken our 23-pin amp seal connector and simply pulled the pins out the back and put them in the right places in our amp seal 35 connector for the GEVCU to run a USB cable to that. I do have the ignition switch on the system, so we're getting 12 volts to it in addition to the power from the laptop. today we're going to play with that a little bit, and let me see if I can bring this up and show you some of the features and what we're trying to do with pedals. And I'm going to have James Frederick get in and work the brake when I need it, which won't be anytime soon, and I'll work the throttle from here. I've got a camera shooting over my other shoulder, so I'm kind of offset from the thing. And I'm going to use a program called Cool Term because it's a little brighter to connect with some huge fonts. And what we see here is the system comes up. I have GEVCU Alpha 2013, August 18th. Info, CAN 0 initializes OK, CAN 1 initializes OK. It means our CAN bus chips are working all right. I have a TWI init OK. This is mostly things for the software team to check to see if things came up. We've got a tick observer and some things with EEPROM values. We're in fast ADC mode. System I/O initialization is okay. We have a heartbeat. We put another tick observer. This is part of this. They're essentially doing kind of a real-time operating system underneath this in a way. I'll catch hell for calling it that, but they're approaching that. And number of pots, subtype. I've got T1, that's my throttle 1 minimum at 300 and max at 2350. T2 min and max. These are out of the EEPROM stored away. And so we have these values. It says serial console ready, the system's ready, and then we get a systems menu. And this has got to be somewhat lengthy. First we have our short commands, they call them. They're single letter commands. I've got one to display this menu. A capital L will output raw input values, and it's a toggle, and that's kind of an important one we're going to be using in a minute. K sets all outputs high. We have 4 MOSFET outputs that we can turn on and off. J sets all of them low. U and I is test our EEPROM to make sure that it will read and write values. A lowercase y is detect throttle min. Uppercase Y is detect throttle max. And Z is detect throttle min and max and other values. Z is save the detected throttle values. Then I have a lowercase b to detect the brake min and max, and uppercase B to save the detected brake values. P is enable Wi-Fi pass-through, and that's this has a Wi-Fi module on it. Then eventually we would be able to do this, for example, instead of through the serial port, through Wi-Fi. Eventually, as I say, I envision a wireless web server that will have a couple of functions. One, you could use a laptop and see the output of the motor and the controller and the temperature and the amps and voltage and so forth. And another screen would let you enter all these configuration variables and many more. Our main configuration we're concerned with now is, of course, with our brake and our throttle. But in the future, we have provisions for other analog inputs, digital inputs, and digital outputs. For example, we just added a pre-charge resistor and contactor to the high voltage input of the DMOC 645. It's kind of blind when we apply power to the vehicle and bring it up out of a totally unconscious state. It starts pre-charging, and that happens within 4 or 5 seconds through a 500 ohm resistor. And then if you turn the ignition switch, it closes the contactor. With this generalized electric vehicle control unit, we can get the pack voltage that the DMOX 645 receives, we can get that over CAN bus. And so we could, for example, close a relay and pre-charge it through that resistor. And when the voltage got to a certain specific value, then engage the contactor with our MOSFET outputs. And that would be a more intelligent way of managing pre-charge than kind of the blind way we're doing it right now. I can tell you from experience it wouldn't be any more effective, but it would be more like they do it in the OEM world. And so that's some of the things that we will be able to do. Right now we're in very much a test and development phase, and so we also have some config commands, and these are 4-letter mnemonics that you follow with a value, and I much prefer them to what we've the Y and Z and B are little routines that Charles put in there to automatically calibrate your throttle, and we're eventually going to use those with the website. For me here, it's just as easy. If we use this L value, capital L, and enter that, well, let's try it again. We start getting some responses, and if you'll look at this on the screen, I've got debug A0 :1, A1 is 0, A2 252, A3 is 0. Our throttle, and we can accommodate 2-wire throttles on A0 and A1. We simply have a 1-wire, and it's on A0. And A2 is our brake, which right now we're not applying any brake, but we get a value of 252. It's just a numeric value. I think the A to D converter will give us up to 4,096 increments, and on a 5-volt, 252 is 252 4,096 of a 5-volt, whatever that is. It's just a numeric value that we can use to scale this. Then we have debug D0, D1, D2, and D3. Those are for digital inputs, and by digital I mean they will accept 12 volts, really anything over 3, but up to 12 or 15 volts without any damage. And that's the kind of thing you would use to turn on a switch and apply 12 volts to one of those pins from the vehicle. Would be read as an off or on. It then displays throttle output, and that's what we're calculating as being part of our derived from the throttle, and we'll talk a little more about that. And brake output. Those outputs are calculated values based on the raw output, which we map in various ways, typically to a percentage. And we can use that percentage then in a sort of a general manner to scale things like our torque. For example, we convert the throttle to a percentage of torque, and we separately can set the amount of torque. We can set the maximum to 50 Newton meters or 100 Newton meters or 200 Newton meters, and then our throttle will give us a certain percentage of that value. And so this is kind of the way our different software modules talk to each other internally to make them easy to modify and to use by other devices. For example, if I had a whole nother controller and I had within its object how it sends a command to command 42% torque, it could still accept a general 42% throttle input from our other code, which wouldn't have to change at all. And it would be up to it to determine what command to send to the inverter to get 42% of the available torque, or even what the available torque is. And so that's sort of the concept. So we're sitting here kind of scrolling along, and if you'll watch A0, here's just a little bit of pedal, and I've got about 300, 310 on there. If I put a little more, we see it goes to 600, and I can kind of walk it up with the pedal. There's 7 and 982, 1037, and it goes back down. It goes to 3. Here's full pedal, and that would be 2340. And here's about half pedal of 1300. There's about a quarter pedal, and so I can see these values. Let's go back to our menu and shut off our raw values. And you can see here that we have a T1 MN, that's set throttle 1 minimum value, T1 MX set throttle 1 max value, and T2 MN set throttle 2 min value, and T2 MX set throttle 2 max value. TRGN is 0.1% of pedal wear regen ends. TFWD, 0.1% pedal wear forward motion starts. TMAP is 0.1% of pedal wear 50% throttle will be. TMRN, percent of full torque to use for throttle regen. B1MN is set brake minimum value. B1MX, or brake 1 max, set brake max value. And BMRN, percent of full torque to use for brake regen. This gets into some stuff that basically the AZD geniuses were alluding to, that setting up a throttle is a little bit different from our low value is 300 and our upper value is 2300. Let's go to the whiteboard and talk about that a little bit, because you need to kind of get a picture of what that is.
All right, you're rolling.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about accelerator mapping. We'll do brake 2. Let's say that we had a dry erase marker that would make a mark, and we don't. Let me get a dark one now. That's something else. How about a blue one? Let's say this is 0 volts. And this is 5 volts. And we want to map our accelerator. The first thing I want is from 0 volts to about 0.8 volts, say, is about, let's divide this into fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I did that pretty good. So this is a volt. Let's start here at about 0.8 volts. And that's going to be maybe, we're going to call this our T1 min. And that's the minimum voltage that we recognize as being a valid throttle. We can make a little throttle from 0 to 0.8. We don't want to use 0 at all because we may be grounded. If we have a valid signal, it should be some voltage. But I want to be able to put my foot on the pedal a little bit and do something. This is our torque here. And let's say this is 10% torque. This is 20% torque. This is 30% torque. This is 40% torque. And we're going to have a maximum regen torque of 30%. And so that's what we would have at the minimum. of our throttle, T1 min. Then we're going to talk about T1 minimum regen. And so minimum regen, we're going to go from 0.8 to 2.1 volts here. And that's about 20% of our 5 volts. And this is our regen ramp. I'm going to take it all the way down to 0. And so if we were decelerating, our throttle at 2.1 volts would start regenerative braking. And that regen would increase as a function of our voltage down to 0.8. So we have 30% of our available regenerative torque at 0.8 volts and 0% at 2.1. And we're going to make us a ramp here where if I have any voltage in between, I'll develop a torque number that I want to apply to the Siemens motor. That's a negative torque that is mapped to this range. We're going to start our forward regen at, let's say, 2.3 volts. And this isn't a regen, this is a forward torque. And we're going to set our, so this is T forward, T1 forward, and we're going to say the top voltage we'll get out of this is 4.5, and that is T max torque. So at 4.5 volts, we would make maximum torque. If we go to 4.6, we don't make any more torque. We're already at the max. And we're going to map this from 2.3 to 4.5. But I'm going to add another point, and that is a 50% torque point. And we're going to say that that's going to occur at 80%. 80% of 4.5 would be about 3.2 plus 4, 3.6 volts. So about 3.6 will be my half torque point. And so what we have is a line that goes like this, and then it goes up to our T max torque. Let's bend that a little bit. I've got my torque scale off. Is a bit of a problem here, but let's do it this way. Now what that does is give me 50% of my torque in this span and 50% in this span, but this span is smaller. And so that gives me greater control here. And this is a variable. This is a variable, T forward, T1 min, T1 max. And so we've mapped the throttle. Now I've left a little gap here, 2.1 to 2.3. You can do that or not do that. But here, in this area, we don't make any torque. And so as I apply the pedal, my first go forward is at 2.3 volts. And I'm going forward and I'm in here. Now I let off some. When I go below 2.3 volts, I don't immediately slam into regenerative braking and go the reverse with a reverse torque. I simply have a freewheel zone. I call this the coast zone, where we're just coasting. So if I can hold that throttle between 2.1 and 2.3, I'm not going forward, but I'm not regenerative braking either. And so this is my coast area. I like kind of a wide coast area because I can go forward some and then hit that coast and just freewheel down the road. I'm not using any electricity at all. For a while, I would go back and forth between having regen and not having regen, but I found if I make this wide enough, I can learn to hit it. And so I'm going down a hill. I don't want it back in the battery. I want to keep going. I want to make that stoplight at the bottom and roll through and halfway up the other hill. I might or I might not. But this is my free wheel zone. We could add, and I've talked to Colin about this, add a map here too, where this was more gentle this way to this point and then went up drastically. Or I could even make it go over here like this. And so we could even bend our curve on the regen side just like we do on the forward side. I don't think you need to get too carried away with logarithmic equations. I usually just have a map with a 50% point that you can move and put it at any percent you want. So T50 could equal 85% of my throttle. And so I have very gentle from 2.3 to 85%, whatever that is. And then after that, I'm putting the pedal to the metal. I get the other half of the torque. But this is how you map the throttle, is the applied torque to the voltage control you get from your throttle. And mostly what we want to do with that is convert that voltage, just for ease of use in the software, to a percent throttle. And we do that pretty quickly. And then we define these points by percent throttle. But this is the basic concept, is you have a dead zone to start and a dead zone at the end. This is really just max torque. This is no torque. And then we have a no torque gap in here for our coast zone. This is regen, but it's backwards. We start at maximum regen and go down to this. Now that would lead to kind of a funny thing, in that we would start with a little bit of pedal. I guess we would roll backwards. What we're going to do is throw in a kicker that this regen is qualified by RPM. So I don't have any regen below, let's say, 600 RPM. So as I'm going through this, I'm still at low RPMs. I don't have regen. When I'm coming down from speed, my transmission's turning my motor at pretty good RPM. I'm decelerating, but it's spinning up the motor. And so this will come into play and go this way until I hit my RPM switch again, at which point it'll drop out. And 600 is like idle. You can make it 400, you can make it 900. And again, that should be a configuration item. But that's your basic mapping of a throttle for an electric drive. And this is some of the options. I think the RPM. Now there's some other ways to do this. We've done it with the Reinhardt, and they were kind of doing it backwards. I talked them into doing it my way, and I think that's how they do it mostly now, is they didn't have any brake, but if you stepped on the brake, they would have a high regen decreasing. What I wanted them to do was invert that. When I pressed on the brake, it would start at a low regen and start increasing. And so I could put on the brake, the regen would grow, I'd be slowing down at an increasing rate. If I was slowing down too much, I took my foot off the pedal. I lost my regen and my braking, and I put it right back on again and started over. And it's kind of like pumping the brakes coming up on the thing. But we use an actual brake pressure sensor, and it works pretty much the same way as the throttle, but we have some different values you usually have a larger max regen on the brake. Let's say we're going to do 40%. That's here is my max. And I'll again usually start out here and give me a dead zone. But now I'm going to start at 30% regen. Now why is that? Well, when I took my foot off the accelerator, that got me to the max regen at 30%. So when I move it to the brake, if I have no regen, my car shoots forward. So I'm slowing down with the accelerator, but when I take my foot off the accelerator and put it on the brake, the car goes forward quickly. Well, that's not what we want. So we're going to start at the same area that we had with the accelerator. So when I take it off the accelerator and put it on the brake, the regen is going to be the same. My foot's going to move quick enough that, there's not going to be any appreciable lunge. And now I'm on the brake, and I'm at exactly the same value of regen. We're going to go to 40. I'm going to set my max here, about 50% brake pedal. And so here's my ramp. Now, why do I do that? Well, we take it off the accelerator, we put it on here, just light brake. We continue to get regen. As I increase the pressure on the brake, my regen increases. But at about half my voltage pressure, I'm starting to get a lot of braking from the brakes. And so I'll either drop my regen entirely or just level it off at max and start to step through my regen to my real brakes and use more braking as I apply more pedal. I don't get more regen. I start to get more mechanical brake. And then, of course, when I release the brake, we go to 0. So we would normally just keep this from this T-max, where we reach the max, it simply doesn't go down. So we don't increase the regen anymore. We start increasing our mechanical braking. And so I like to have regen on the brakes. A lot of people don't. And we will, of course, have the option of setting max brake torque to 0. In fact, you can set the max throttle regen to 0. And in fact, we have 4 analog inputs. There is some talk, and I imagine we will input a multiplier of your max throttle regen and your max brake regen, whatever values you enter in the configuration, that then you can scale that by an analog input, and they'll both scale at the same rate. And so you could have a knob right there on the dash to adjust your regenerative braking, and you could tune it not to sport and econo mode or whatever it is on the Tesla, but actually tune it to what you wanted with a potentiometer. And of course, if you turned it all the way counterclockwise, you wouldn't have any regen at all. If you turn it all the way up, you would have whatever your max values that you would put there. And I think that would be a great addition to the GEVCU to be able to tune to the driver, not to the car. Each driver could set their regen with this setting. And so that would be, so that's a little bit of background just to visualize what I'm doing out on the VW thing to enter values. But these are you have to mentally go through the whole scenario from dead stop to 100 mile an hour and back, and what that feels like at every step. And for example, you don't want to put a little bit of accelerator in and have the car start to back up. That's not what we're after here. And so it takes a little bit of thought to go through this. We've done so many different controllers and seen so many different ways of doing it. I'm pretty sure we can work out a scenario that'll work pretty well without killing anybody but me and Jamie maybe, or Shane perhaps. He'd be dispensable. back to the shop.
Definitely walk-forward moments is some of the best.
Okay, now you're all smart on throttle curve mapping. Let's take a look. We can set, and I think these are case sensitive, T1MN. If you notice, my throttle was started at 0. I'd put in a little throttle and I would get a value of 300. I'm going to set throttle 1 min to 300. That means I could put my foot on the throttle a little bit and not have the vehicle leap out from under me. I've got to press the throttle a little bit to get to the minimum. And so I have a little dead play there. The max, T1MX, I'm going to set that to 2350. And so that'll be our maximum. T2 min and max, often you'll have, as I said, a 2-wire throttle, and it will be different values. It could even be inverse. It could go from positive to negative instead of negative to positive. More typically, you'll see, your main throttle line will go from 22% to 84% of the 5 volts, and your secondary throttle wire will go from 11% to 40% or 35%. This is intentionally on different scales so you can put a sanity check in the software to measure the two values and see if they make sense to each other. If you have something shorted to ground or shorted to 5 volts, that's not going to make any sense because the equation, the function that relates those two linear but different lines would not hold true, and you can declare the whole throttle input bad if it persists and shut down the controller. TRGN, tenths of a percent where pedal where regen ends. I actually think of that as where it begins, but it's sort of backwards thinking either way. As I said, we'll have minimum regen at maximum pedal regen, which is the first part of our accelerator, but the furthest into it. And he wants us to set that in tenths of a percent where pedal regen ends. Let's say TRGN equals, let's say it's 20% of the throttle. And so I'm going to say equals 200 since it's in tenths. Now that means at 20% throttle, if I'm releasing the throttle, when I get down to 20%, I quit driving forward and I start applying regen. And my minimum regen would be at that point. And that regen would continue down to my minimum level, or the 300 I entered, in a fairly linear fashion, although we could even map that, and I have suggested that we put in a map function for that to bend that curve. The TFWD, I'm going to set TFWD equal to 250. Now that's where we start our throttle forward at 25%. 250 would be the number of tenths of percent. Now why did I do that? Our regen starts at 20%, and as you let off the pedal, it applies more regen. From 20% to 25%, I haven't started forward, but I'm not going backwards either. And that's a dead zone. I call it a coast zone because I could simply free roll in that if I could find it with my foot. And a 5% is a pretty wide dead zone, where if I'm taking my foot off the forward and not accelerating any longer, and I hit regen and it starts to retard, I can add a little pedal and just put it in kind of a coast mode by holding my foot there. So I like a kind of a wide coast zone there to let me free roll. And so then we have T-map, tenths of a percent of pedal where 50% throttle will be. Well, our throttle starts at 25%, obviously goes to 100%, we're going forward. And so 75% of our throttle is from our minimum forward to our maximum. We could let it go at that. The T-map is an ability to slide the midpoint, where we're going to say that 50% of our torque occurs where? Now, if it was dead in the middle, between 25 and 100, that would be 75 or 37.5 plus 25 is 57.5, 62.5%, or 625. That would be a perfectly straight thing. However, I'm going to enter 750, and I'll explain that again. T-map equals 750. And what that means is that 50% of my forward torque would be applied across a range from 25% of my pedal to 75%. 50% of my pedal going forward accommodates 50% of my torque. That leaves the final 25% to the end, and that's where the other 50% of my forward torque would go. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, that gives me a lot finer control at the low end where I'm parking or driving around the driveway and need control. Above 50% torque, I'm wanting to go fast. Now, what do you do with the pedal that's different between fast and really fast? Well, you step on it completely. And so I don't need the kind of control from 50 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour that I do in the parking lot. I can spread that across the final 25% of the pedal, and I'm mostly wanting to go hard. And so I don't need nearly that level of control. And then I have TMRN, percent of full torque to use for throttle regen. Well, if I use 100% torque, then at the minimum throttle, I would be going as fast backwards as I was forward. That's not precisely what we want. So I'm going to put in a TMRN, percent of full torque to use for throttle regen, equals 25. It doesn't say tenths there, so I'm just going to, setting throttle regen strength to 25, that means that 25% of our full torque would be the maximum torque I would apply with a throttle. And I also have a brake max regen, BMRN, and I'm going to set that to, say, 35. I want more regen when I'm applying the brake. Let me show you a trick with a brake. Let's go back to our logging function and see our outputs. We have a 251, 252 on the brake right now. Jamie, give me about, I'm going to say half a brake, what would feel like you to be slowing down smartly but not a panic stop. That's not very high, Jamie. I don't even have brake lights yet. Okay, there's some brake lights. And I'm at 693, 664. I don't think you're stepping on it very hard. Are you braking or just coasting? All right, now that's about 13, 16. Stomp on it all the way. And I'm seeing 2312. This is remarkably similar to what we have on the accelerator. And so a half brake would be about 1250. And so I'm going to call our max about 1250. And our min is 250. Okay, you can release. And let me bring our thing back up. B1MN. We had about 250. I'm going to say about 300 for our brake minimum. Well, I don't want to applying regen while I'm driving down the road. Some people ride the brake a little bit, but the real thing is, again, I want a little dead space on that pedal. I want some room in case that value changes, my 5-volt wanders or whatever, where I'm not applying a regen when my foot's not on the brake. I'm going to set B1MX maximum to about 1100, let's say. Now, why would I do that? We have brakes on the car. Well, they're drums in the back. Are they discs in the front? No, they're drums in the front too. We just put new drums, new cylinders, new shoes, and so forth. We've got brakes. And so at some point, we're going to be using our regular brakes and applying regen. I'm not too sure about that. I want to be able to use the first part of the pedal to brake only with regen when I'm not really applying much pressure to the brakes. They're kind of coasting, and I'm getting most of my braking from 300 to 1100. Just barely have a brake light on, and I'm getting a lot of the braking from the motor. But from 1100 on, the last half of the brake travel, I don't even need regen. I'm doing a panic stop here, and we're stepping through that to the regular brakes. Now, I can change that and have regen all the way through 2300, but then I have it spread out, so I don't have as much at 1100 of regen. I only have half of my brake torque. So I'm going to set it up where I get all of it from 300 to 1100, and after that I'll lose it actually. And we might want to put some kind of taper in there from that, I don't know, but by then I've got the brakes on and I'm really putting some leg into it. He was telling me he had the brakes on at 600 or 800, and I told him to step down on it, and then he went up to 2300. So I'm claiming that after 1100, we're into true braking and not regenerative braking. And that lets me kind of concentrate my regen band in just the first part of the brake where I'm not really using much shoe. And we've found that this works. We've found in the past that this works pretty well. And so that's some of the things. Now, understand in doing all this that we're basically making stuff up. And then we're going to go drive it, and we're going to find out that it doesn't feel very good. And so we come back and we change these values and go drive it again. And after about 100 times, we'll know a couple of things. One, that the car is feeling better, and two, that the software is sucking more, and it's starting to limit us. But we'll be able to talk to our software development team much more cogently at that point, and they'll know what we're talking about. And so, because we'll be able to give more specific likes and dislikes, I need more range on this part, or I need to be able to bend that regen curve from the minimum regen point on the accelerator to the maximum I'd like to kind of front load that where I have more control up front, and then as I come back off of it, it increases the regen rate. So we can do those sorts of tunings. Again, once we get all this worked out and know exactly what the variables are, we'll go back and revise my original spec and get that working in code. And eventually you will have a kind of a complicated, I hope not too complicated, but kind of a feature-rich configuration screen. I intend it to be on some sort of a wireless or Ethernet website where you can use any laptop or anything with a browser, really, including your smartphone or tablet, hopefully in the end, to configure your generalized electric vehicle control unit, or to monitor the particulars of your vehicle operation. And so we'll try to make that as easy as we can. We'll try to make it as simple as we can and no simpler, because I do want it to be a feature-rich environment, very different from how they do the OEM thing where you have any color you want as long as it's black. We're striving for a box that'll let you truly tune your car to exactly how you want it to feel, and in fact be able to plug and play pretty much with a variety of controllers and inverters and motors and so forth, to where the device can truly be generalized and be used on any build, any conversion of any gasoline car to electric drive using any inverter and motor that will respond to CAN bus commands. That's the mission, and I'm kind of in awe. I have actually, and I fully intended to just do all this if I had to. I've done almost none of it. I barely understand how it works. We've got 3 very talented software guys and now 2 very talented hardware guys who have taken this essentially away from me, and they have to spoon feed me how it works so I can even get it to work on my thing. Anyway, I think that we've got a crack technical team, somewhat global in scope at this point, and if we pursue this device will basically obsolete most vehicle control units in the electric car space, certainly for anyone doing a prototype type activity, hobbyist build or university team or anyone prototyping. You can get all this pretty well worked out on the GEVCU and then go have somebody cast that into code if you want to go back to the Motorhawk cheap vehicle control unit and stamp out 10,000 of them, it won't be a problem. So that's the program. And that's where we're at with the GEVCU 2. We are getting data from our pedals, and we appear to be generating values in the software. And the next thing, we're probably looking next week to driving it about a bit. And again, I'm embarrassed to report that the throttle we had on the car was part of the problem we had in the software. Stay with us. Okay, we had a little problem with the thing last week, and I posted this to you all to take a look at, and I have since been receiving a lot of replies, almost all of which indicate a belief system in inrush current, particularly the DC to DC converter. Let me show you what I did. I took an enclosure. I have a fuse. It's a high voltage fuse, but just about 30 amps. Put that in there. This is a thermistor. Thermistor starts out at some ohmic value and decreases as current goes through it, and it heats up. This is a MS35 OR 550. That's a 35 millimeter diameter, probably a 5 ohm 50 amp. And what that does is start out at 5 ohms which doesn't restrict it a lot to about 60 amps, but it quickly heats up and decreases to 0. And the 60 amps really isn't going to hurt our input capacitors. And so this has the effect of doing a pre-charge. The problem that it has is it heats up, and once it's heated, it's useless as a thermistor until you let it cool down for a minute or two or more. So what I did was took an automotive relay and took the output of our DC to DC converter to close the relay. And the relay shorts around the thermistor. Take a look at the diagram. So our inrush current goes through the fuse, through the thermistor, on the way to the coil. Once it's through all that and our DC to DC converter comes up, the relay engages, cutting the thermistor out and connecting the 12 volt directly. We have a coil that's about 50 microhenries, which is actually quite a coil. I think this does 14 amps. Understand when we're operating fully at 800 watts, this device at 330 volts only takes in about 2.75 amperes. I've got a double diode. I use one side of this as a flyback across the coil, so if we shut it off and that collapses, it won't spike anything. It simply discharges through one half of the diode. The other half of the diode is a one-way into the DC to DC converter. And what that does is if I step on the accelerator and my pack voltage goes from 330 down to 280, I have a 50 volt difference between the DC to DC converter and my pack. And the capacitors try to discharge out into the 19,200 watt hour battery pack and help drive the car. The diode blocks it. And so with this handful of components in this enclosure, and I drilled a hole and put a gland nut in the end for the wiring, we have a high voltage wire in, a high voltage wire out to the DC to DC converter, and our ground and 12 volts in to close the relay, cutting the thermistor out. After I did all that, and in fact, we may do a design of this and actually offer them as kind of a conditioning, input conditioning for DC to DC converters type box on the web store. However, I don't think it did anything on our thing, because as it turns out, the DMOC 645 had no contactor in it at all, and it has a very massive capacitors compared to the little ones that were in this, and I'm certain that that's what was welding our contactors. And in any event, as you see, I've got now a deluxe Cutler hammer emergency stop switch with a ruby light on it that I can slap and disconnect my whole system, but simply by pulling it back out, I apply our aux battery to the contactor, which will charge my DC to DC converter and produce 12 volts, and we'll be back up. It also pre-charges the DMOC 645 through a 500 ohm 250 watt resistor. Some are telling me that's too much, but it's still, it's a little under an amp into those capacitors. Even though they're large, an ampere of current will charge them in 4 or 5 seconds. We used to use 750 or even 1,000 ohm resistors as pre-charge resistors, and it would be a count of 6 to pre-charge them. When you re-engage the slap switch, start that count, you want to wait about 5 seconds before you turn on the ignition. When the ignition switch comes on, that contactor will also close, applying voltage directly to the DMOC 645, which I'm fairly confident will be quite fully pre-charged at that point. Stay with us.
That's in the store, I hope. Little switch and stuff,
You
man.
betcha, man. I got the switch from hell. Emergency stop,
I got it. It does
in
too.
Ruby.
In Ruby.
And when you hit that switch, it goes ka-thunk.
Yeah,
I love that.
that is pretty cool.
The GEVCU is coming along
Yes,
very
nice.
good. I have shipped hardware to Charles Galpin, Michael Neweiler, and Mark Weisheimer.
Yeah.
Just in the last day or two. I didn't put a Dewey in there. I think they've all got them.
Probably got some spares laying around, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
But I sent them the hardware. So we're all on the same page on the hardware. We're going to go through another evolution. Paulo Almeida from Lisbon has commissioned some boards where he shrunk everything down onto one board with an isolated side and a non-isolated side.
Oh, cool.
I really like the design there. And but it continues basically the same thing. But the Arduino Dewey goes away.
Yes.
I've got two minds about this. See, if we blow up the multiprocessor or something, we pull it, plug another $38 thing in. Now we've got it all on one board. That's très cool, except if it goes bad, you get to buy another
Get
one.
another board, you know, of the whole thing, right?
So,
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that, but it'll be cool anyway. And poor Paulo was driving around here the whole EVCon trying to get that thing
I
working.
know.
Come to find out, this pedal, I put another pedal right next to it, and the other pedal works just as I'd expect it to. We go back to the first one, and it's got like a huge dead spot in the middle of it and stuff. I'm sure they thought that was in the software or something.
Oh, no, it was in the pedal.
It was in the pedal
Oh,
the whole
man.
time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
There's
tough.
nothing like troubleshooting something that's got at least 3 things broke.
That's right.
You
Man.
kind of have to get it down to one problem.
Yeah.
And we did not successfully do that for him. So I think we'll be rolling this week. I think we're rolling now. I'm still dicking around
Just
with
kind of
the
fiddling around
numbers
with it,
and
yeah.
values, but I think it would drive away right this minute.
Well, that's good.
But we,
Take our time.
in our mystery, I did a neat circuit for the DC to DC converter. Let me put up a schematic diagram I have now. In fact, I put it in the store.
Okay.
With the DC to DC converter. It has a input relay that's driven by the output voltage, just like what I did in the box. They do inside the DC to DC converter. It was never the DC to DC converter. It was the DMOC 645.
It was, okay.
And it has no contactor in it and no pre-charge circuitry. And Mark Weisheimer traced down that that's all done and contained in the Johnson Control SAFT battery pack.
Oh, man, okay.
And of course,
Okay.
the VCU
Yeah.
talks to the battery pack and also talks to the DMOC 645. So it's all handled in the Transit Connect, but not where it was. And so for you with Siemens motors and DMOC 645s, be aware that you're going to need to make provisions for pre-charging those input capacitors.
Yeah.
Apparently, I have not destroyed them, which
Oh,
is
good.
fortunate.
I know, that's amazing.
Because that's one of the outcomes of inrush infarctions is you blow the caps.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of an expensive part of the
Yeah.
controller. So if you're mashing about with Siemens motors and DMOC 645, be aware that you need to pre-charge it. In our case, we simply put a 500 ohm, 250 watt resistor. You don't need 250 watts. It sounds like this dissipates a lot of watt. It's a very narrow pulse. These caps are not infinitely large. You also don't need a 50 ohm resistor or something. 500 is fine. I've used 750, even 1,000. 1,000 ohms, it's on a typical controller is like 8 or 10 seconds or 12 seconds to pre-charge it, which is not forever. But at 400 or 500 ohms, 330 volts, it's not going to be 5 seconds
No, 'cause
to
we used to-
pre-charge that.
We was on the Mini, didn't we? Pre-charge, yeah, we had to use
I
one
had
on the Mini.
750
750
ohms on
ohms, yeah.
the Mini at 360 volts.
And it was
a little bit
fast.
higher voltage,
Yeah.
and it was quite fast.
Yeah, it was quick.
Again, 6 or 8 seconds, and so. But we have 4 MOSFET outputs of the GEVCU, and it would be, and we can get the voltage of the battery pack from the DMOC 645.
Oh, okay.
And so it's
yeah,
entirely
so-
feasible to close a MOSFET with a GEVCU to start the pre-charge. And when the voltage reached a certain value, to close the contactor.
Close it, yeah.
And then even drop the pre-charge relay to where then if you did break the contactor with an inertia switch or something, that it wouldn't automatically kick back in the pre-charge. So all that could be added into the generalized electric vehicle control unit to do a much more cogent job of actually detecting the voltage on the caps, because what it reports as battery voltage is really the voltage on the input caps.
Was on the input caps, yeah.
And so that's entirely feasible, but be aware you do need to pre-charge the DMOC 645. It was not the DC to DC converter at all.
No.
And as soon as we added this to the DMOC 645, we have not lost another contactor. I can pull that slap switch in and out forever. I can slap that thing and cut out all leakage from the car and use that aux battery to bring it back just by pulling that slap switch. I've even eliminated the push button with a charge diode to that battery.
Oh, the momentary, yeah.
Yeah, the momentary switch is gone.
Okay, oh, cool. Good.
And we use simply the battery side of the charge diode. We wire to the slap switch, which goes through the contactor coil to
Okay,
the
cool.
inertia switch, and then when the DC to DC converter comes up, that same voltage comes through the diode from the DC to DC converter to charge the auxiliary battery and continue to hold the contactor.
Nice.
So
Okay, good.
all
Little
is
simple.
well
Yep.
with the thing power. The battery bled down.
I was watching that.
This is why I don't like aux batteries,
I know.
but this is a function of those A123 cells. They're not young, and I cast them in this acrylic, and it gets pretty hot while that cures.
Oh, that's right, that stuff gets pretty warm, yes.
So I'll
Yeah.
make another one if I can find another little plastic box somewhere with that diode and so forth.
Cool.
And so that'll be very très cool for the thing. And I hope to start doing some driving tests next week.
Nice, that'll be good. Good, looking forward to it.
What else do we have to show? We did Anna's Red Boat,
We did.
Jehu's input, the thing,
Yes?
and I guess that's it.
You didn't get anything on the Escalade this week at all?
No,
Did you
I
not?
really didn't.
Okay.
We've detected a problem on the a potential problem on the throttle body, that sensor and servo.
Okay, yeah, I said it was out of the car, yeah.
I don't think that's anything to do with it. I don't even think it's bad. Shane does, and he could be right, and it's so inexpensive and so easy
So
to
easy
change
to deal with.
that
yeah.
I'm going to do that before and test drive it before we.
Pull the tranny out.
Yeah, and get another
torque
torque
converter and
converter.
everything, yeah.
It was in fact shifting very good at low speeds with a new torque converter. I got out on the freeway and this thing started bucking
when it
like
started.
crazy.
Almost like
I
that.
don't know if it's
No.
an ECU function or if indeed that it's a little servo motor and potentiometer
Right in that throttle
we're
body,
using
yeah.
in the throttle body. We're not really using it anymore for the input to the motors.
No, we're not getting the throttle signal out of there anymore, right? For the
Right,
solitons.
but the ECU
Still
seems to
seeing
be,
it.
yeah, if it's going bad, the ECU might be messing up our transmission
Right, it might-
stuff.
right.
So I might have a little loop going there. It's always tough to tell. There's no go-by. It's the only electric Escalade in the country.
right. How do we know?
What do I compare it to
Yeah.
get a reading against a good one? And so, but it's $178. So I'm going
And
to
a
get
connector,
the
yeah.
yeah, and you just unplug it and plug in another one.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do, and test drive it before we pull that transmission
Yes,
out again
exactly.
and spend another $1,500 on torque converters. So that's where the
All right,
Escalade is
sounds
right
good.
now. Meanwhile, I'm driving the little. I've got a Tesla Model S and an Escalade. I'm driving the eTransit Connect. But you know what? The air conditioning is weenie, but it's just good enough.
Okay. You're in the front of it.
And the visibility out of it's horrible,
I
but
know.
it does have this little camera that shows up in the rearview mirror. And but it's a clunky little white van. It accelerates well. It's perky.
it
Perky.
does. Yeah,
It's
it is
not
perky.
a race car, but it's perky. And I really kind of like driving it around.
All right.
And the other
I do
thing
too.
is
It's fun.
this is like a truck made for handicapped people. You open the door and kind of walk in and sit down.
Oh, yeah, you just do kind
Like
of
the
slide
Escalade
in.
I have to climb up into. The Tesla I have to fold up into a little ball and nail myself into. I have learned how to get in and out.
All right,
but
cool.
it's not a thing you want to watch.
You do it behind like a sheet or something.
Yeah, right. Do it in the bushes. And but this little eTransit Connect, it's kind of like the smart car. You just kind of pop the door and walk in and sit down and close the door.
Cool.
And
Good.
so I mean, it's I don't know what to tell you, and they don't make them anymore. But I kind of like the little thing.
Nice. Yeah, every time I've
And
driven, I enjoy
I'm
it.
very encouraged about the Siemens motor and DeMott because of that little
Right,
vehicle.
everything runs good.
It does run good, and it has more power than I would have thought. And so it's kind of perky, and we're having a good time with it.
Nice.
Should I tell them?
What? You can always edit it out.
Other upcoming projects, we may want to edit this out. I needed something for my thing.
Oh, was it getting lonely?
I bought another thing.
Stop me before I thing again.
We're gonna lock two things up in there in the dark and see if they'll breed in captivity.
Because I guess obviously it wasn't enough time when Jeff Southern was here. And we may find it. He may
Well,
have.
he may have gone home.
Yeah, that's right. He
you
may
know,
find something.
with things.
That's right. We don't know yet. What's the
His thing
gestation
may be
period
in
of
a
the thing.
family way.
That's
I
right.
don't know. But I bought a green thing. It's been on eBay so long I got tired of looking at it.
Keep going
The
back
guy
to it.
just would not. In fact, I had bought it 3 times and never met the reserve. And finally, the guy sold it to me for what I'd been bidding.
Just figured you were in,
so-
huh?
Well, I noticed he's been raising the price on you ever since.
Oh, yeah.
And I was supposed to get that for $12,500. He has already added some documentation fees and some other crap to it. But
We have a thing coming.
well, I should have known that.
Yeah. They can't help themselves.
When am I going to get that?
Well, we got all the paperwork. I gave them everything, all the signed stuff back yesterday, so they're arranging transport. I'll find out on Monday.
So I don't
where
have
it
the
is.
first thing going,
And we're on our
and I
second
don't
thing.
know the first thing about it, and I've got a second thing coming.
You know what they say when you have about 2 things. I can't repeat it on camera, but 3 is really a problem.
Well, we're going to have the thing. I don't know. These cars just appeal to my sense of whimsy. They can't be any good as a car. They're just clunky and stupid, but
But they're fun.
they are kind of fun.
Yeah, but they're fun. Yeah,
How's
good
your
projects.
Carmen Gia coming?
Actually, I started taking it apart. Now that I'm kind of decompressed from the show cycle and all that, I started taking door panels. I was still doing mechanical stuff. I'm trying as hard as I can to get to the electrical part, but
What did you find underneath all that rust?
more rust.
More
Yeah,
rust.
more rust. Yeah, I kept looking for metal, but I couldn't find any.
We may want to bind all that rust up with some good high quality paint.
That's what we're thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Try to hold it together.
I heard that.
Some epoxy paint or something.
Yeah, I heard spray foam isn't good for you anymore, so we can't use that.
Yeah, maybe lay some fiberglass over the metal and hose it down with the
That's
epoxy.
what I'm thinking.
See if it'll cure.
Just spray it with a gun, see what happens.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll get it there. We're just doing right now VW and old car maintenance.
I'm running into some weird stuff. I'm shopping hard. I found a guy on eBay selling GE watt stations for $6.99.
Oh, really?
And I said, hell, we could take those, mark them up
Sure,
a little bit,
yeah.
put them in the store there.
Yeah.
I like mine that I got.
Yeah, it works good. Yeah.
So I said, what kind of deal can you make for me on 10 of them?
Okay.
He came back $770 a piece.
Oh, there you go.
It's like quite a quantity discount.
That is.
So I didn't take them.
Yeah, good.
But I'm running into people like this all over the web. I ordered a Albright in the UK. Now has, they had the slap switches, which I've used some of those.
Yes.
And they now have one that's a combination slap switch and contactor
Okay.
with magnetic blowouts and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I ordered one. And I got a message from this gal that I needed to talk to the engineer because I didn't think those options would work together. I picked the options off their website. And in any event, it was 8 to 12 weeks to get one.
Oh, no. Jeez.
I said, you're supposed to be in the UK. That sounds like China.
Yeah, exactly. And I could get 1,000.
Right. If you don't have one and you don't want me to have one that way, and it's 8 to 10 weeks anyway, why don't you just refund the damn money?
Yeah, just
and
forget it. Yeah.
I'll mark you off in my bookmarks list. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on out there. Yeah, it's $6.99 for one, 10 for $7,700.
That's a real deal.
It is. I almost went back and see what he'd take for 100.
Simple country boy from California, that's a deal.
Yeah. I guess you got to make it up in volume.
Got to make it up in volume. That's right.
He said there was a shortage of them.
Oh, okay. There was a shortage of something, Jack.
There's charge stations all over the country that nobody uses.
Yeah.
The only place I want them for is in your house.
Yes.
And so, anyway, I hear that music going again.
Music.
Anyway, we've got that emergency stop switch in the online store.
That's pretty cool looking, yeah.
It goes ka-thunk. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, see you then.